Our next speaker is someone who has given a lot to this country and to our state. Mark Kirk represents Illinois in the United States Senate, and as an independent voice for families and businesses from every corner of the state, he has been strong. Mark is a fiscal conservative, social moderate, a defense hawk on national security, and a proven record as a bridge builder. He earned a history degree from Cornell, a master's degree from the London School of Economics, and a law degree from Georgetown University. In 1989, Mark was commissioned as an intelligence officer in the U.S. Naval Reserves and served 23 years until retiring in 2013 with the rank of commander. He served 5 terms in Congress before being elected to the United States Senate in 2010. He is a strong champion and leading advocate for the industry and innovation in Illinois, and is an expert on issues impacting veterans. He is also a national security expert, and in these days and times and trying concerns that we have in this nation, we are very proud that we have someone like him there. And then there are the issues and the hard work that occurs each and every day in the Congress. Last night, Senator Kirk was supposed to get on an airplane to get back here to be at a breakfast that we were hosting on some other issues this morning. He had to stay in Washington because they had a highway bill that was being worked on, and inside that bill, through some political maneuvering that people like Senator Kirk was a part of to get done, the Ex-Im Bank, a strong and #1 priority of the business community in Washington, was passed. And this man was a leading advocate of that. Fate dealt Senator Kirk a little bit of a bad hand a few years ago. We all know that he has made tremendous strides in continuing to represent this state, and we're all very proud of Mark that he is able to do it under the circumstances. It isn't easy, but he does it each and every day, and for that we're thankful, Senator. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Mark Kirk.
I bring very good news. Last night in the Senate, I saved the Export-Import Bank of the United States. And let me add to that, this is very good news for John Deere in Moline and Caterpillar in Peoria, who use Ex-Im's financing capabilities quite a bit. There is a longer story to why this was such an important battle. In China, the Chinese have dumped $25 billion into a project to create an aircraft called the C919, which is the competitor to the 737 by Boeing, their best-selling passenger model. In the case of the Boeing 737, they generally sell for about $100 million each. So when you get on that jet, know you're entering a $100 million facility. That C919s have sold 400 copies around the world. All that should have come to Boeing. And without Ex-Im's financing, we're going to need to make sure that when you fly in the United States, you fly American. If you come out of aviation like I come out of, think of an aircraft as like a bottomless pit of spare parts that are necessary to keep it flying. All those spare parts are, if it's a Boeing aircraft, it's going to be American from the wide supplier network. We want to make sure that in the future you always are flying American. With Ex-Im in the game and Boeing in the game, we can make sure that that supplier network is always standing behind an American plane. I have one other mission today that I want to rebuke you and say that so many of us in the state run down the state of Illinois after Blagojevich. Thank God we have Governor Rauner in office now. And raise your hand if a friend of yours has ripped on you because you're from Illinois. Everybody, just about. I'm going to give you a few Kirk talking points here. In this, whenever somebody goes on one of these riffs, I usually pull out my cell phone. iPhone, the emblematic product of the 21st century. And the thing which make the iPhone work is not just the cell phone guts at the top end and the web browser in there. And the cell phone guts were invented in New York, in Illinois. And I would tell you, remember the very first cell phone call in the world was made from the 50-yard line of the Soldier Field. And it came out of our Martin Cooper with our team out of Motorola in Schaumburg. And Martin was actually living in Winnetka at the time. If you look at this emblematic good, 76 million built and sold. The two key guts of this iPhone have roots in Illinois as deep as Abraham Lincoln. The cell phone invented, and the web browser invented the web browser obviously invented by Mark Andreessen in Champaign when he started a company called Netscape that started the whole .com revolution. When you guys, lots of times when I give this talk, people from Peoria, hey, say, Kirk, tell them that we invented the electric blanket, which they did. A lot of times, I've been thinking about giving a speech that counteracts the joke that senators often tell me when I got there. They say, hey, Kirk, come over here. You're the only senator where one ex-governor can turn to the other ex-governor in prison and say, you know, Gov, when you were in power, the food was a lot better here. I wanted to make sure that when somebody starts on one of these Illinois riffs, you can mention that without Illinois, your house would be a lot dirtier and a lot stinkier. And because Illinois invented the vacuum cleaner and we invented the dishwasher, and your breath would smell, I would say that remember that we invented modern dentistry. That whole idea of drilling out a cavity and putting an amalgam in on top came from Illinois. There's a reason why the American Dental Association is right here in Illinois, because we invented modern dentistry. I will say that I bring you good gifts from last night until 11 o'clock when we were doing Votorama. And those two gifts that I bring you is the Ex-Im Bank is signed, sealed, and delivered through 2029. We're going to make sure that it's actually, and that is not being debated. It's in the conference report. It can't be taken out. And it's attached to a $600 billion transportation bill. Whenever you spend money on transportation, you're spending money to advantage this economy. Remember that half of all road, rail intersections in the country are in the state of Illinois. So whenever we spend money on transportation, my big goal when I get reelected is to make sure we beat those bastards at Hartsfield International Airport and make sure that we have the #1 airport in the country. Yeah, that's the goal. I would add on to that, in the old days when airplanes were made out of wood and paper, it was important to design an airfield with runways pointing as many directions as the wind could possibly give you. Right now, with the heavy aircraft that we have, the ideal airport is to have as many east-west runways as possible, and that's why I'm so in favor of the O'Hare Modernization Project, to have seven runways all lined up so we just crush the opposition. The instruction of Boeing moving here was key. Boeing executives based in Seattle were too tired of switching planes. When you come to O'Hare International Airport, you can fly to 82 direct locations in the North American market, the largest market in the world. Want to make sure that we get that done to make sure that key job engine for Illinois is rolling. I would say lots of people talking about China. I will tell you one war story. In the Senate, I have founded the China Working Group. I founded a similar group solely for the purpose of creating political capital so that I could cash it in on your behalf. I'll tell you one war story from Bob Johnson at Baxter, the largest maker of our intravenous fluids in the world. They sell about $150 million a year through the Chinese port. Bob called me up and said, hey, Mark, the Chinese just shut down our intravenous line. $150 million in sales for a totally BS excuse that we had PVC in the bags. And I called up Wang Qishan, who's the number 3 in the government there. He started the conversation the way I thought he would. Mark, what can I do for you? I said, you know, what you can do for me is open up the Baxter healthcare line, $150 million in sales. Happens to be from the president's home state, and Wong got the message, and we got that opened up. So as we meet later on after I finish talking, I hope you make me your China control officer. If you have a Chinese problem, I have built up so much political capital with them. I want to cash it in on behalf of you and your employees. One thing I got to talk about the workers of Illinois. A lot of times I ask employers, you know, standard Republican thought is, since we're so racked by high costs and unions and corruption, why don't you move to one of these low-cost states? One entrepreneur from Illinois said, you know, I was looking at some of these small southern states. They said, I couldn't open my facility on such and such a day because everybody was hunting on that day. He said, I never, ever heard that from Illinois employees. They just show up, they work all day. My reason for this is our inherent Polish character. The 2 million Poles that have, Poles just work all day long and don't ask for recess. That Illinois spirit, we got to make sure we sell that. There's no absenteeism during hunting season for us, unlike these southern jurisdictions. We sell the Illinois worker who is just going to work like crazy with a technical expertise that I will say invented nuclear power right underneath the Stagg Field in the University of Chicago. Think about this country. When you think about climate change, 60% of all the non-carbon emitting energy in this country is from nuclear power. 11 reactors here in this state. I'm going to make sure that we have an easier permitting process and emphasize nuclear power, which we are so expert at here in Illinois. With that, let me say thank you, everybody, for listening.